too early for this. Today I'm gonna give you 7 reasons why you'll never be successful unless you hustle. And just kidding. Today we're talking about my disability, why I can only count to 7. So I was born with 2 fingers on my left hand and a shorter left arm. Technically, I was born with all of the fingers in the center here, and they were all kind of together. What the doctors decided to do was to cut out all of the remaining fingers and most of the bones, the carpals and metacarpals of my limb, and they removed all of that. I did not get bit by a shark. I get all kinds of questions. This is just how I was born. So given that also the ulna and the radius, the bones in the elbow, weren't fused together properly, which means I had this big lump. About 4 inches shorter than my non-affected limb. I used to do pull-ups just using basically the thumb. Imagine doing pull-ups with a thumb. I balance everything on my hand. I can walk around with a plate full of food, a bowl of cereal, my phone constantly. I'm very good with balancing. I'm so used to balancing, but also I'm used to hiding my hand. So I always had a glove, and I always put things on top of my hand to potentially hide it. Some people have asked, why not just cut it off so it looks better? I hate that question. For one, this gives me some sort of locking point for deadlifts. The only reason I can deadlift 675 pounds is because I have that locking point. 2, I'm not willing to cut off a limb just for looks. Now, when I was younger, I probably would have, and I'm so glad that I didn't opt for that because I have these 2 fingers that are somewhat mobile. I can't move them side to side like this, but I can go up and down. Because I have that, I have movement, I have control, I can at least do some things. You know, I can't grab or anything, but I can at least do some things. That's my hand in a nutshell. One of my favorites, Failing Forward by John Maxwell. I love John C. Maxwell. Such a good author. I'm a big believer in the difference between failing and failure. Failing is a verb. Everyone does it. It happens. It's like stubbing your toe. But failure is a noun. It's a person, place, or thing. It's an identity. It's something that people accept. And it's something that I've accepted for a long time, growing up with a disability, thinking that I was a failure. I became something because of something I couldn't control. And this quote by John Maxwell, tell yourself, I'm not a failure, I failed at doing something. There's a big difference. And there's so many times that we mess up at things and we think, because I messed up at this, I am a mess up. We have a hard time separating with what happens with who we are. You know, when you stub your toe, you're not just the worst person in the world. You're not a terrible person. Your character isn't affected. Just like a $20 bill, when it's wrinkled, it still maintains its value regardless of what it went through, regardless of whose nasty ass pockets it was in or whose sweaty fingers touched it. But with us, a lot of times when we fail or when something is different or we're born differently or people label us a certain way or comment certain things, we accept an identity, we accept a failure identity when in reality, if we mess up or someone else's mess up starts to affect us, that's not indicative of who we are. That's indicative of who they are. And that's indicative of what something is. But just because a circumstance happens around you or to you doesn't mean it is you. All right, now I'm gonna head to the gym. I gotta do bench, and I'll show you guys some cool stuff that I do, balancing the weight on my hand. So a requirement before you go to the gym is clearly play with your puppy, so that's a must. So I just got to the gym, caffeine number 2. About to hit my stuff. I have to do normal bench, only like 70%. I'll show you guys how I'm going to balance the bar on my hand and yeah, how I'm able to balance, have symmetry, and build as much muscle mass with an amputation or with a limb difference or disability. I spilled shit all over my shirt. I don't know if you can see that, but on a white shirt. I don't even know why I'm wearing a white shirt to the gym, but now I have to change. All right, so my camera battery died because I only have one. I'm getting more. Sorry, guys. But I'm gonna walk you guys through some of the stuff in the gym. As you'll see, I don't have much space in my hand, so to balance the bar, that's all I can do, is I have to balance the bar on my residual limb. Obviously my arm is shorter, so you'll see when the bar is kind of crooked and goes sideways. But the heavier the weight actually, the easier it is for me to rely on that balanced bar because it pushes deeper into my residual limb, so it's less likely to slide. I have had it drop off and like fall on me with lighter weights, but the heavier it is, the more comfortable I am. I've benched up to 365 pounds with my residual limb, even in competitions. I've done over 7 powerlifting meets, and yeah, I've had no real issue. Because of the elbow thing, if I train really heavy for a long period of time, I used to get a lot of elbow pain, but I work with a guy called Tony Rogers Reset, and he's helped me like stay out of pain and fix all that stuff, this is his gym, Reset Athletics. In terms of switching the bar, you'll see I use this Swiss bar with all the cool slits and stuff like that. That's to help strengthen my bottom position and my triceps, and to give my shoulder and hand a little break because I do have some shoulder issues on my non-affected limb, my right arm, and carpal tunnel and all that. So the positions allow me to change handles and train a little bit better. I also did a few different accessory workouts, but usually I'll only film some of the fun stuff for you guys. That pretty much wrapped up the gym session. All right, now for food. I do have some meals in here. So I use this meal prep company, and it has all the macros on it, which is great, really cool, a bunch of different types of meals and stuff. So for this one is a chicken cheesesteak. There's 74 grams of protein in there. I don't know if you guys can see that. And only 11 grams of carbs, which is great for me having type 1 diabetes. Kind of gives me the rundown on macros and all that stuff. That's super important for me. Because of diabetes, I do track my macronutrients and I'm kind of loose with it, but I have to know how many carbs are in almost every meal because I have to give myself insulin every time there's carbs. Technically, for my diabetes management, I figured out 1 unit of insulin, which is the medication I use like I mentioned in my last video. 1 unit of insulin for every 7 grams of carbs. I eat about 200 grams of carbs a day, so you can figure out how much insulin I take per day. Also, I do about 200 grams of protein a day and about 100 grams of fat a day. So those are the macronutrients that I'm on. I'd say I'm 50-50, but to be honest, right now, a few of my buddies from the gym just wanted me to meet up and go to a sandwich shop that I love called Henry's in Fort Lauderdale, so I think I'm gonna go. Also, side note, I don't know if I told you guys, but I'm a co-owner of a protein bar company called NRG Bite. It's the best tasting chef-inspired protein bar, actually started by my friend who's also a type 1. He's a chef named Paul Kahn, and these are smaller protein bars. They're delicious. It's to the point where I think you would rather put down a candy bar and have one of these because they're that good. Something like the peanut butter is a mix between Nutter Butter and a Reese's peanut butter cup, but with protein, healthy, and all the ingredients you can read. So I'll be posting more about these, but just to give you guys an insight, that's something else I do throughout my day. I hit my workouts, showed you guys a little bit of how I balance stuff on my residual limb, and I just wanted to finish up with, this is what I was dealt with. Just as people struggling with disabilities or limb differences, or differences, because everyone is different, everyone has a difference. And my entire life I was picked on for my difference until I realized that labels only hurt if you accept them for yourselves. I'm not a failure because of how I was born, something that I can't control. I'm a failure if I decide to let my circumstances stop me from becoming who I say I want to become. I fail all the time, but I'm not a failure for something that's outside of my control. And I'm damn sure not a failure because I have a few less fingers. Just understand that just because you're different doesn't mean you don't fit in, doesn't mean you aren't as good or you aren't capable of reaching a potential or a goal that you say to yourself. I let people label me my entire life as a failure, as weak or broken or useless or helpless or any of those things. And a few years ago, I stopped. Now I'm making videos like this to give you guys an insight on, a pretty cool disability that a lot of crazy stuff that a lot of people aren't really familiar with happened, but more so to show you guys that Real inclusion, real diversity and inclusion, being part of a minority group, disability group, the largest minority group in the world, has really opened my eyes to understand how many people treat people with differences differently. When at the end of the day, I'm the exact same as you. I might have less fingers, but I can still lift a lot of weight. I can still wear really stringy shirts that make me look muscly. I can still get tattoos. I can still curse. I can still mess up. I can still fail. I can still choose not to be a failure. I'm a normal person that looks different, just like you. Unfortunately, I've come to expect dumb comments. I've come to understand that it doesn't matter what I say, what I do. Someone's always going to say something dumb or harmful. There's going to be keyboard warriors from throwaway accounts and fake accounts that want to try and bring people down. And that's just, it's so sad that people like that exist, because I can only imagine how bad they have to be hurting, or how bad they have to be struggling, or how low their confidence has to be to make fun of someone with a few less fingers or a few less toes or with a bigger nose or a smaller chin, or to make fun of someone for being different. That's how I was born. That's what I do with what I've got, and I highly suggest anyone watching do the best with what you got where you are now. Never think your circumstances make you a failure. The only thing that makes you a failure is your decision to never keep going. Until then, over and out, guys. Woo!